I moved into my grandmother's house about a month ago. I wanted a fresh start after my breakup. It felt familiar, like a warm blanket of memories. I remembered playing outside with the neighborhood kids and racing to the streetlight as the sun set. I thought I'd feel some comfort here. On my first night, I decided to check out the Ring camera footage she'd installed around the house. I felt a bit strange doing it, like I was invading her privacy. But I just wanted to feel connected to her one more time. I found something odd, a brief flash of shadow darting past the flickering streetlight. I brushed it off as nothing. Maybe someone had walked by. The next day, I noticed more strange clips. One showed a figure approaching the front door around 2 a.m. I felt a chill. I watched closely, but no one was there. My heart raced, but I wasn't sure if it was fear or just curiosity. I replayed the footage. Just a silhouette. Days passed, and I thought I heard laughter from the backyard. It echoed in my head. I stood in the kitchen, caught off guard by the smell of something sweet. It reminded me of my grandma's cookies. I stepped outside to check. It was cold, and I felt like I wasn't alone. Looking around, I found nothing. That evening, I delved into the video again. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to see. Then it happened. My grandmother appeared, clear as day, even though she had passed just weeks earlier. Her face looked exactly as I remembered. My heart raced. I tried to convince myself it was a glitch. I wasn't ready to accept what I saw. Nights turned into a routine of obsessively reviewing the footage. The shadow came and went. The laughter remained. Memories of my grandma came flooding back. Each night, I would watch, unsure if I wanted more than a glimpse or if I should stop altogether. Then came a night that truly unsettled me. I froze in place when I saw a figure standing outside my door. I couldn't make a sound, just whispered, "Do you need help?" No reply. A wave of cold washed over me. I thought I heard my grandma's voice, soft and tender. I stepped back, heart pounding. Who was out there? What did they want? I looked at my phone. The Ring app showed the front porch, but it was just a still image. I turned around, and the figure was gone. Maybe I imagined it. I felt trapped in that moment. What was happening? What awaited me around the corner or in the next frame? Would I see her again? I began to wonder what else would show up on the Ring camera. What was real, and what was just a ghostly echo of the past? I couldn't shake the heaviness from the previous night. My mind was a storm of confusion and dread. I decided I needed to leave the house for a while, maybe clear my head. So, I drove to a nearby cafe that I used to love. It felt comforting to be out in the world, but as I sipped my coffee, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the Ring app. My heart sank. I hesitated, then tapped on the alert. The video started playing. I almost dropped my coffee when I saw it. There was movement on the screen. A figure was once again by the front door, but this time, something was different. The silhouette was staring directly into the camera, its outline sharper than before. My stomach twisted. I quickly turned the volume up. A low whisper floated through the cafe as I strained to hear. "Help me," it sighed. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. I couldn't breathe. I was alone at the cafe, but I felt frozen to my seat. I forced myself to focus. I had to know more. As the figure moved back and forth in front of the door, another sound broke through the unmistakable creaking of the old swing in my backyard. I hadn't heard that in years. How was it moving? My grandma used to push me on it, and now it was swaying, back and forth, just like that day. Panicking, I spilled a little coffee on my shirt, the heat reminding me that I needed to get back to the house. What was happening there? I rushed home, my mind racing. Every shadow felt alive, every sound magnified. As I pulled into the driveway, I hesitated, a wave of fear washing over me. But this time, I wasn't going to ignore it. I had to face whatever it was. I stepped inside and locked the door behind me. My heart pounded as I moved toward the living room, the Ring camera view still playing in my mind. I searched for the remote to pause the footage, but it suddenly felt irrelevant. What was on that screen couldn't prepare me for what was real. I approached the back door cautiously. The swing was still. For a moment, there was silence, and I felt almost at peace. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker. The porch light momentarily blinked out above the entrance. My breath hitched. I edged closer to the window. That's when I saw it. At the foot of the swing, a small pile of shoes, little, child-sized shoes that I didn't recognize. I grabbed my phone again, anxiety crawling back. I needed to check the Ring footage once more. I quickly accessed the app, shaking as I waited for it to load. Would anything make sense? The screen suddenly glitched, and before I could react, the video played without me even touching it. It jumped straight to the current time. And there, on the camera feed, stood a small figure just outside the door. It looked like a little girl. "Help me," I thought I heard again, clearer this time. I stumbled back, stumbling over my own feet. I blinked at the screen. The girl was staring right at me. The final moment was the worst. The porch light flickered back on, and then the feed cut to black. I took a deep breath, hoping it would steady my racing mind. The darkness of the living room was almost suffocating, but I needed to push through. The shoes still lingered in my thoughts like a heavy fog. Who did they belong to? I glanced out the back window, desperate for the truth. The yard was empty now. The swing hadn't budged since I'd arrived. Maybe it was just my imagination. But the video. I shook my head. I could almost hear that girl's voice echoing in my ears. "Help me." I swallowed hard and turned back to the front door. Was I brave enough to open it? I hadn't felt this scared in years. Steeling myself, I approached the door. My hand hovered over the knob. I told myself it was just a girl. Just a child. Yet the fear knotted in my stomach, urging me to reconsider. I thought of the shoes. Suddenly, I heard it. A soft patter on the porch. I froze. My heart raced again, thumping hard against my chest. I couldn't ignore it. I had to see. Carefully, I opened the door, its hinges creaking loudly in the silence of the evening. The cool air rushed in, wrapping around me like a chill. I peered into the dim light and saw nothing. Just the empty porch. No swing. No girl. I stepped outside, glancing around nervously. The night felt thick with secrets. The air was hushed. I turned my gaze to the side of the house. And that's when I noticed something gleaming near the swing. It was metallic, catching the light from the porch. Instinctively, I moved closer. The shoes were gone, but the shiny object was still there. A rusted locket lay half buried in the grass. Crouching down, I picked it up, sensing something important about it. My fingers brushed against the cold metal, and I felt a shiver run through me. The locket was warm, as if it had been touched recently. Opening it revealed a faded photo of a girl, maybe the same one from the video, standing by an old swing. She was smiling. The image felt strangely familiar, but I couldn't place it. There was a name etched on the back. Anna. The name rang a bell, but I pushed it away. I couldn't dwell on it right now. Then I heard the whisper again, louder this time. "Help me." I jerked up, scanning the dark corners of my yard with urgency. Whatever was happening here was becoming too real. Anxiety clawed at my throat. I needed answers. Shoving the locket in my pocket, I turned to go back inside. But something caught my eye. The swing began to sway. All on its own. Panic churned in my stomach. I didn't want to stay there any longer. As I stepped back towards the door, the porch light flickered again, and the whispers grew stronger. I dashed inside and slammed the door shut, my breaths quickening. I leaned against it, practically shaking. What was happening? Then, I heard it. A soft knock at the door, rhythmic and patient. My heart stopped. Help me. The voice was unmistakable. I pressed my back against the door, a sinister tension gripping me. I felt the weight of all my decisions pressing down. Before I could think, the knock came again, louder this time. The door felt like a fragile barrier between me and the unknown. What did it want? I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to know. I stood there, heart racing, my body tense against the door. The rhythmic knock echoed in my mind, a beat I couldn't escape. Help me. The voice was soft, pleading, and unmistakably real. My first instinct was to bolt. But curiosity rooted me to the spot. Why was this happening? I took a shaky breath and slowly unpressed my back from the door. Who's there? I called out, my voice shaky. No response. Just silence, thick and heavy. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine, but I had to know. I edged closer to the door and looked through the peephole, my heart pounding in my ears. Through the small circle of glass, I spotted a figure standing in the dim light, but the porch light cast long shadows, obscuring the face. It was small, much smaller than an adult. I flicked the light back on with a hand that trembled. Nothing prepared me for what I saw next. There she was. A girl. The same girl from the video. Her hair was disheveled, and her clothes were tattered. Before I could blink, she whispered again, "Help me." Her voice drifted through the door, and the chill in my veins deepened. I had seen enough horror movies to know that this was the moment when curiosity leads to regret. Yet I couldn't turn away. "What do you want?" I asked, but there was no answer. Instead, the girl took a step forward, closer to the light. My pulse quickened as I noticed the locket around her neck, identical to the one I had found. It swung gently, catching the light in a way that seemed intentional. I forced myself to ask, "Are you Anna?" At the sound of her name, the girl's expression shifted. Fear crossed her face, and her eyes widened. "They're coming for you," she said, her voice cracking. "Who?" The moment hung heavy in the air. She looked over her shoulder, as if sensing something lurking behind her. Panic consumed me. I flung the door open, but the porch was empty. No swing. No girl. Just the cool night air wrapping around me like a shroud. Just as I began to comprehend what happened, I heard laughter. High-pitched and chilling. It came from behind the trees at the edge of my yard. I turned, heart racing, thoughts tumbling in my mind. Suddenly, I wished I hadn't opened the door. "Oh God, what now?" I whispered, stepping back inside, slamming the door shut. I locked it, my breath quickening again. I paced the living room, fighting the urge to look out the window. The laughter grew louder, echoing in the night. That's when I saw the shadows moving outside, 3 figures wandering into the light, faces obscured. One of them paused, lifting a hand to point at my house. My stomach dropped. I backed away from the window, heart pounding. What did they want? They weren't just here for fun. Then came another knock, this time on the side of the house. Heavy and menacing. My breath caught in my throat again. I edged toward the back door, dread pooling in my gut. I had opened the door once. What if I did so again? Footsteps crunched on the gravel outside. "Help her," the voice whispered again. But I didn't know if I could. Suddenly, the lights flickered, illuminating everything before plunging me back into darkness. Someone was inside the house. I stood frozen in place, my heart thumping loudly in my chest. The darkness closed in, thick and suffocating. I had to take action. I reached for my phone, praying the battery hadn't died. I needed to call for help, but the screen lit up to show 1% battery. Panic surged. I moved quickly to the kitchen, grabbing a butcher knife from the block. It felt cold and heavy in my hand, a small comfort amidst the threat. I crept down the hallway, the shadows shifting and warping in the meager light streaming through the windows. Outside, the laughter faded, replaced by whispering voices. I couldn't quite make out the words, but they felt charged, urgent. My breathing quickened, echoing in the silence of the house. I approached the living room cautiously. I peered through the blinds, but all I saw was darkness punctuated by moonlight. The figures were gone. Maybe they'd lost interest and left, but something deep inside me screamed that wasn't true. I turned to face the hallway that led to my bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I hadn't left it like that. My skin prickled. I took a step back, and the floor creaked ominously beneath me. Then, a shuffling sound came from the bedroom. I felt a chill roll down my spine. My instincts told me to flee, but I couldn't just abandon my space. Whoever or whatever was in my house needed to be confronted. "Show yourself," I shouted, clutching the knife. It was a feeble challenge, but it was all I had. Suddenly, I heard the sound of something crashing in my room, the metallic clang sharp against the quiet. Adrenaline surged within me as I took a step forward, heart racing. What if it was one of the figures from outside? Or worse, what if it was something else entirely? I took a deep breath and pushed the door open, knife raised, ready to confront whatever lurked inside. But the room was empty. The bed was undisturbed, and nothing seemed out of place except for my closet door. It was open a crack, barely an inch. My mind raced back to the girl. Had she warned me of this? With trembling hands, I stepped closer to the closet. I could hear a faint sound, like muffled voices or whispers coming from the darkened space beyond. I pushed the door open further, revealing nothing but shadow. The air was thick, almost suffocating. Just then, I heard the front door slam shut. I whipped around, fear slicing through me. The darkness in the closet fell away as I turned to face the hallway again, but I caught a glimpse of movement, a flicker of a shadow darting down the stairs. I felt sweat trickle down my back. Who was there? Whoever it was had some connection to Anna, the girl from the video. But why? The questions piled in my mind, one after another, drowning out any sense of reason. I glanced at my phone again. No signal. I gripped the knife tighter. The house felt alive with danger. I needed answers, and I had to find out what happened next before it was too late. I backed away from the closet and listened intently. The house was silent, but the weight of the unknown pressed against me. I took a deep breath, deciding that standing still wouldn't help me. I had to find out what was going on. Peeking out of my bedroom door, I scanned the hallway. Everything looked still, almost too still. The shadows seemed heavy, almost like they were watching me. I stepped out, my bare feet cold against the hardwood floor. I tried to remember when I last left the front door locked. What if whoever had entered was still here? The idea made my stomach churn. I made my way steadily down the staircase, holding the knife out in front of me like a shield. As I reached the bottom, I caught a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye. I spun around to see a shadow slip into the living room. My heart raced. I tiptoed forward, every creak of the wood sounding like a scream. The living room looked empty. The curtains fluttered softly with the night breeze, casting long shadows. I moved closer to where I had last seen the movement. A low voice drifted toward me, muffled and distant. "She can't find out," it said. I froze. I couldn't discern the speaker's identity, but the urgency in their tone made my skin crawl. I strained to hear more, inching toward the hallway that led to the basement. The whispers intensified, swirling around me. Tentatively, I approached the basement door. It was slightly ajar, letting out a sliver of deeper darkness. My hand trembled as I reached for the knob, heart pounding louder than before. I pulled the door wider, steeling myself for whatever I might find. The air was cooler and carried a damp smell. I held the knife tightly and stepped down into the dimness. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. I quickly checked the screen, but it was just a notification, a news alert about a missing girl. Not Anna, but a similar name. I cursed under my breath, shoving the phone back in my pocket. The whispers grew clearer as I descended. They sounded frantic now, overlapping like a chaotic conversation. The last step of the basement creaked loudly, and I lost my nerve. I hesitated, unable to shake the feeling that I was stepping into something far beyond a simple break-in. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. A heavy silence fell over the basement, and then I heard it. A soft scratching sound came from further inside, a dragging noise that chilled me. It was coming from behind an old, rickety shelf stacked high with boxes. I couldn't move. My fingers tightened around the knife as I contemplated the unsettling choice before me: go back upstairs and pretend none of this was happening, or take one more step forward into the unknown. I closed my eyes for a brief moment, summoning the courage I desperately needed. I thought of Anna and the ominous warning she had left me. I had to find out what was making that noise. With one last breath, I stepped deeper into the basement, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. Then everything went dark. I reached for my phone, hoping to use its light, but it slipped from my hand and hit the concrete floor. The world dimmed into shadows, and the scratching grew louder. I was no longer alone. That thought echoed as panic set in. Who or what was in the room with me? As I stood there in the pitch black, the scratching intensified, sending a wave of dread through my body. I crouched low, heart racing, listening. The sound continued, like something persistent trying to break free from its bonds. I had to find my phone. I needed light. I bent down, fingers fumbling along the cool concrete floor, searching desperately for the screen. Instead of the familiar smooth surface, my hand brushed against something rough, an edge of a box. I drew back, startled. What was in that box? Just as I was about to retreat, a flicker of light ignited my surroundings. The glow from my phone flickered on and off, barely illuminating the darkness. I found it and grabbed it with shaking hands. Its weak light revealed dust-covered shelves and piles of forgotten items. But there was something else, dark shapes shifting behind the shelf where the noise was coming from. Hello? My voice quivered, barely breaking through the thick silence. No answer. Just the relentless scratching. I edged closer, focusing the phone's light on the shelves. My breath caught as I caught a glimpse of something sharp and metallic just beyond the wood. It looked like a chain. Panic surged. What was it attached to? I had to know. I took a cautious step forward, feeling the creak of the floorboard beneath me. Then I heard it, a soft thud, almost a whisper that seemed to echo back. Please, don't, the voice murmured, frail and trembling. I froze. Did someone else know I was down here? I turned the phone toward the source, heart roaring in protest. There, partially hidden between the shelves, I spotted a figure crouched low, trembling and wide-eyed. Was this Anna? It couldn't be. Too small, too frail. I forced myself forward, my grip on the knife tightening. As I neared, the light bounced off a frame, a face emerged. It wasn't Anna. Just a girl. Her hair hung limp around her haunted expression. She looked at me with a mix of fear and relief. You have to leave, she whispered urgently. He doesn't like visitors. Who? I asked, confusion mixing with fear. But before she could answer, the scratching sounds morphed into something else, deeper, more angry. My heart threatened to leap out of my chest. The girl's eyes widened, a silent warning flashing across her face. I didn't want to think. I had to act. Can you get out? I asked. No. I'm trapped, she stammered, her voice shaking. Then, I felt it cold air brushing against my neck, a presence looming closer. Shadows shifted where they shouldn't run. She screamed, but it was too late. The moment consumed me. I turned and bolted back toward the stairs, the faint light of my phone illuminating the way, but the shadows stretched and twisted, blocking my path. My breath was heavy, and the darkness felt alive. Suddenly, I felt a sharp tug on my sleeve. I jerked, twisting to see the girl's hand reaching out. You have to go now. She cried. That's when I felt it, a presence, dark and menacing, creeping in behind me. I didn't look back. I dashed for the stairs, every instinct screaming at me to escape, but the shadows thrummed with a chaos of voices that echoed hauntingly in the thin air. They were closing in on me. I reached the last step and burst into the dim light of the hallway. But as I turned to keep running, I noticed the basement door slamming shut on its own, sealing away the shadows and whatever was trapped inside. Or perhaps, whatever had been waiting for me. What had I stumbled into? And who was that girl? My heart raced as I stood there, realizing the danger wasn't over yet. I stood in the hallway, my heart pounding against my ribcage, still reeling from my encounter in the basement. The door was solidly shut, muffling the frantic scratching and screams from the other side. I felt a cold sweat trickle down my back. Had I really just faced something so sinister? I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I was still safe, at least for now. But I couldn't shake the image of that girl with the haunted expression, or the fear that had laced her voice. Who was she? And what was she trapped from? As I gathered my wits, I needed to know more. I turned to leave the hallway when I heard a faint noise. My ears perked up, a soft buzzing sound, like a phone vibrating. I moved carefully down the hall, following the sound until I reached a small table near the living room. There, among scattered papers and dusty knickknacks, I saw the source, a cell phone, lying face down. I hesitated. It wasn't mine. I looked around, trying to find someone who might have dropped it, but the house felt emptier than ever. I turned it over cautiously. The screen lit up, revealing a picture of a girl, same haunted look, same dark hair. This was the girl from the basement. What had happened to her? I felt a surge of determination wash over me. I needed answers. I began to scroll through the photos and videos, my breath catching as I saw her face over and over again, each image marked with the same fearful expression. Then, a video caught my eye. I pressed play, my heart sinking. The shaky footage showed the girl in a dark room, probably the very basement I had just escaped. Shadows flickered across the screen, and disturbing noises echoed. Then I saw him, an ominous figure, just out of focus, lurking in the background. His presence sent chills down my spine. Help me, the girl pleaded through the video, her voice trembling, almost as if she were begging for someone to save her. My hands trembled as I watched, realizing just how deep this darkness ran. Suddenly, a loud thud resonated through the house. I jumped, adrenaline flooding my veins. Someone was here with me. My instincts kicked in. I had to hide. I quickly turned off the phone and tucked it into my pocket. It was coming from the basement. The thudding continued, now accompanied by a low growl. I could hardly breathe. Glancing back, I hesitated. Should I go back to the basement? The thought made me want to run. But that girl needed help. I crouched behind the table, heart racing, listening intently. Footsteps echoed on the wooden floor above, slow and deliberate. Panic clawed at me. I needed to make a choice. Either I faced whatever was coming, or I fled this house and hoped to find help. That's when I heard a shrill scream echo from the darkness below. It was the girl's voice. "Please. Don't let him take me." I pressed my back against the wall and closed my eyes, grappling with the impossible choice ahead. The shadows were alive, and I could feel them inching closer. The moment the girl screamed, something inside me snapped. I couldn't leave her. I had to do something. I quietly edged out from behind the table. My fingers brushed against the phone in my pocket as I moved toward the basement door, fueled by an unsettling mix of fear and purpose. I gripped the doorknob, the metal cold against my palm. With a deep breath, I turned it slowly, the creaking sound cutting through the silence like a knife. I opened the door just enough to peek inside. The basement was darker than I remembered, shadows clawing at the edges of the dim light. "Please," I whispered, unsure if anyone could hear me. "I'm coming." I descended the creaky steps, each one echoing like a shout in the stillness. The low growl intensified. My heart raced with each step. The air was thick, laden with the smell of damp earth and something metallic. When I reached the bottom, I hesitated. The scratching had stopped, and the silence felt deafening. "Hello?" I called, my voice wavering. "Are you here?" That's when I saw it. A flicker of light in the corner caught my eye. There, just beyond the shadowy space, I noticed a small, irregular piece of fabric, a torn piece of the girl's clothing. My blood ran cold. It matched what she wore in the video. Then, the growling returned, louder and more menacing. I could feel heat radiating from the darkness like a beast waiting to pounce. I squinted, trying to see through the gloom, but it only deepened. Panic surged again, threatening to swallow me whole. "I can help you," I shouted, though the tremor in my voice betrayed me. I stepped toward the light, breathing heavily, desperate to find her. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from behind me, followed by a chilling whisper, "You shouldn't have come here." I turned, but no one was there. Just darkness. My resolve began to wane, fear clawed at my mind. Then the girl's voice echoed again, "You have to find him. He has the key." "What key?" I yelled into the shadows. My question hung in the air, unanswered. I turned back to where the flickering light had been, but it was gone. My heart raced. I reached for the wall, fingers trembling, searching for something, anything to anchor myself. A small protrusion caught my attention. I felt around and discovered it was a loose brick. My instincts kicked in. I pulled it out, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside was a rusted key. It felt cold and heavy in my palm. Just then, the growl morphed into a harsh laugh echoing throughout the basement, a sound so cruel and taunting I almost dropped the key. I had to act. But just as I turned to flee, I heard something shift behind me. Cold dread washed over me again. I was no longer alone. "Don't leave." The girl's voice cried out, now sounding more distant than ever. In that instant, I understood. The key wasn't just to the door. It was a key to the truth. I had no idea how long I had left, but I couldn't run now. I had to find out what this place was hiding and who was really pulling the strings. "I'm coming," I whispered, clutching the key tight as I prepared to face whatever was lurking in the darkness. I stood there, fear clenching my heart as the chilling laugh echoed through the cracked walls. The growls morphed into whispers, beckoning me forward, pulling me deeper into the chaos. I couldn't ignore the girl. I had to save her, and maybe, just maybe, I could unlock the truth behind all the shadows that loomed over this house. I took a shaky breath and clutched the key tightly. It was strange how something so small felt so heavy. The pressure of secrets long buried and calls for help weighed on my shoulders. "Where are you?" I shouted into the dark, trying to mask the quiver in my voice. Deciding to take a leap of faith, I inched toward the back of the basement. The whispers grew louder, swirling around me like a storm. Shadows danced just beyond my vision, teasing me with their chaotic movement. The girl's voice grew fainter, replaced by something more sinister. "Leave while you still can," a voice hissed, crawling into my head. I glanced around, panic gnawing at me. I felt the oppressive weight of fear, but I couldn't abandon the girl who needed me. "Anna," I called out, hopeful the name would reach her. There was silence, and for a moment, I thought I had lost her. But then her voice broke through, raw and echoing, "Help me. You have to keep going." I pressed forward, driven by her desperate plea. Then I saw a door at the far end of the basement, ancient and worn, an aura of darkness surrounding it. This had to be where the girl was trapped. I rushed over, the key shining in my palm like a beacon in the dim light. I hesitated at the door, heart racing with dread. But the growls began again, deep and furious, like a beast agitated at my attempt to stop. Somehow, I was sure whatever was behind this door was more terrifying than what lurked in the shadows with me. I took a deep breath, shoved the key into the lock, and twisted. The door creaked open reluctantly, revealing a small, dark room. I stepped inside, the air thick with a stench that gripped my throat. "Anna?" I cried. "Where are you?" A flicker of movement caught my eye. There, in the corner, crouched a figure, trembling and small. It was her. Relief flooded over me, but it vanished when I caught sight of what lurked behind her, shadows creeping, forming an outline almost human. There was something deeply wrong about its presence. "Please," the girl whimpered, her voice cracking. "Trust me." I rushed forward, reaching out to her. "I'm here. I can help." "It knows you're here," she warned, terrified. The shadows began to pulsate violently as if reacting to my presence. I didn't want to look away, but I felt the shadows sway and shift, a cacophony of whispers and laughs closing in around me. Just then, something lunged from behind Anna, its form twisting and distorting. My instincts screamed at me to retreat, but I couldn't let her down. I knelt beside her, grasping her hand. "Let us get out." The shadows wrapped around us, cold tendrils latching onto my limbs. The thing in the middle of the room hissed, furious. "You shouldn't have come. You've awakened them." Pain shot through my body as I felt the cold seep into my bones. "What do you mean?" I cried, struggling against the grip. "That door opens to what was hidden," Anna shouted, her eyes wide with fear. "You have to close it." Inexplicable dread anchored me to my spot. I had to make a choice, confront whatever entity had been awakened, or find a way to escape. I felt the shadows tugging me in different directions, their whispers filling my ears. "Do it. Do it." No longer could I withstand their cacophony. I twisted away from the pull, focusing on Anna. "Hold on tight." I summoned every ounce of strength I had left and sprinted toward the door, dragging Anna with me. The shadows screamed as we passed through their domain, their claws scraping at my skin. But I didn't look back. I could feel the darkness clutching at my heels. We burst through the doorway, and cold air hit me like a splash of water. I slammed the door behind us, breathing heavily. For a brief moment, silence reigned. Anna and I both stared at the door, hearts racing. Did we? But the whispers persisted, faint yet haunting, echoing through the cracks of the old wood. "You can't escape," they hissed. "What was that?" I whispered, dread seeping back in. Anna stepped away from me, her expression flickering between hope and despair. "We have to seal it," she pleaded. "The chains over there." I turned to see iron chains hanging from the wall nearby, rusted and ancient. With a surge of adrenaline, I grabbed them and hurried back to the door, wrapping them around the handle. Just as I pulled the last loop tight, the shadows began to writhe with renewed fury. "No! You can't!" I could hear the voice of that dark figure from before, angry and guttural. But I tightened the chains, securing them as the dark mass thundered against the door. "Stay behind me!" I shouted at Anna, its anger surging. It felt like an eternity, but finally, as I secured the last link, the door rattled violently, then fell silent. There was stillness, the oppressive presence seemingly gone. What did we do? I huffed, fear coursing through me. Anna looked at me with teary eyes. I don't know. But I think we stopped it. For now. My heart raced with the aftermath. The house felt different. Still heavy, but strangely lighter. I reached for Anna's hand and squeezed it tightly. "We need to get out of here." Together, we stepped slowly out of the basement. Relief washed over me. I could still hear the faint whispers lingering like shadows at the edge of my mind. I glanced back at the sealed door. It seemed to pulse even in its stillness, a warning that the battle was far from over. Once outside, the night air felt cooler, as if we had cast off a weight. I looked at Anna. "What happens now?" She gazed at me, vulnerability and strength intertwined in her expression. "We still have to find the others," she said softly, voice trembling. "They're still trapped." A chill ran through me, realization dawning as the shadows at the edge of my vision flickered ominously. I felt the weight of countless questions on my heart. Something deep inside me knew that the darkness hadn't been vanquished. It was only just the beginning. The answers, the truth of those who remained trapped beyond the walls of the house, lingered like shadows waiting to be uncovered. I shivered, staring into the yawning abyss of uncertainty. What were we truly dealing with? What lay ahead? Part of me was desperate to explore the mysteries of the past, while another part wanted to run far away from this new reality. With both trepidation and resolve, I turned to Anna, knowing we had a long journey ahead. The answers were out there, hidden within the mysteries. And whether they led to salvation or despair, only time would tell.